Hi everybody, Nick McDonald speaking. Just before I look at the charts today, I'd like to express our sincere thoughts and best wishes to anybody in Christchurch who has been affected by the Christchurch earthquake. Many of you may know that I myself am a New Zealander. I live in Auckland, and I was also in New York when the quake struck, so a very, very long way away from where that happened. But I know that we have many clients and therefore many listeners in Christchurch, and our thoughts are with you. If there's any way we can help you at all, then please do email me personally. I would like to know. Moving on to the charts for today, we have the Russell 2000, and we're looking here at a weekly chart. So what happened last week was we came up and we hit into this resistance, and we'd closed up there the week before last. We pretty much opened the week pretty much at that same high, rallied ever so slightly, and sold off back into the weekly moving average zone. So we've now had that decent pullback. It's not as big a pullback as I was expecting. So now the question is, are we going to keep on up from here, or are we still likely to sell off a little bit further? So there's the weekly chart, and we've still got that resistance. We came down, and in fact, not only bouncing off the 10, but also off this previous resistance, so now become support down around 800. Coming and looking at a daily chart, you can see that now we'd pull back into the 50 as we're pulling back into the weekly 10. Then we've rallied, we've pulled back in again, small green bar breaking up through. The daily chart actually looks pretty decent now. It certainly looks better than it did at the start of last week, now that we've had that decent sell-off. If we come and look at the monthly chart, however, we still are due that correction. And I still maintain that we're due a correction back down to probably more like around about these levels of 750 to 700. The question is whether that comes now, or whether the markets still continue on up for a little bit before that happens. Let's have a look at some of the cash indices, because some of them were a little bit more overbought than the Russell. If we look at the Dow here as a good example, see how the Dow had been, apart from on this one occasion back here, where to pull back to the 50, it had pretty much just been pulling back into the 10 and 20 all the way up. Note that now this is a sign of just that bigger pullback than has happened previously, when we've now pulled back beyond that 10 and 20 period moving average buy zone. We've pulled back, and even though it's slightly bullish down there, it's quite a big pullback. So in fact now any pullback back up towards this old high is more likely to result in a lower high somewhere before that high. So that's kind of the expectation based on a daily chart, is that it's a bigger pullback and we're likely to pull back a little bit further. If we come and look at the weekly chart as well, we haven't even touched the moving average buy zone yet. So we just need to pull back at least into touching the 10 or a little bit beyond that, into that zone around the 10 and 20, maybe even a little bit further than that. So based on the weekly chart as well, the Dow has a little bit more of a sell-off to come, and of course based on the monthly, there's not even hardly a sign of a sell-off yet, other than one is due, and the monthly chart is looking like that should be coming sometime soon. So the Dow is looking like we'd sell off a little bit further. Let's just have a look here at the S&P. The S&P has pulled back in, and it has touched the moving averages here. Based on a daily chart, similar to the Dow, it's pulled back a little bit further. We've got a bullish candle now breaking up through. I'm still though expecting, especially based on the monthly chart, for price to just pull back a little bit further on this occasion. So even though that chart may be starting to look a little bit bullish, I'd need to wait and see based on a weekly chart, a small green candle form on a weekly, and then a break up through that. So it's going to take me at least another week to become bullish on the index markets here. But lastly, let's just wrap up with the Nasdaq, because the Nasdaq is very, very similar to the Russell. It's pulled back further, it's pulled back beyond the moving averages, it's pulled back into the 10 and 20, it's pulled back into the 50, beyond the 10 and 20 and into the 50 there, and it's now looking a little bit bullish again. In fact, probably out of them all, this looks the most bullish simply because it's pulled back into its averages here, touching the buy zone. Now we've got a very bullish candle. So if anything, the Nasdaq has some room to push on. But like them all, when we come and look at the monthly chart, it's due more of a pullback. So right now, even though some of the charts are turning slightly bullish, we've got some conflict there, because we've got the Nasdaq and the Russell looking slightly bullish from these levels, having pulled back into the moving average buy zone based on the weekly. But we've got the Dow and the S&P that haven't pulled back far enough and are looking a little bit like pulling back further. But on all of them, the one thing they've all got in common is the monthly charts are looking overextended and looking due a sell-off. Therefore, this week, even though I'm expecting maybe a little bit more of a rally back up towards these old highs, I'm expecting these old highs will not hold, and I'll be looking for lower highs and a move back down as we sell off a little bit further. So that's my expectation for the week. I won't take long trades. I'll try and position myself for a short trade. I'm more than happy on the long side to sit on the sidelines for this week. By next week, I may have changed my mind if we've broken up through these highs again and we're looking bullish. Equally, if we come back to a weekly chart, if what we get on a weekly chart here on the Russell was a little bit more of a pullback again, back into that moving average buy zone and a small green bar, I'd love it if this week's candle could close small and green and bullish touching that moving average buy zone, it may switch me to bullish for next week. But for now, I remain bearish. I'm still expecting a bit more of a sell-off. There's still overhead resistance on the chart. In order to change my mind, I'll need either that small green bar, or I'm going to need to break up through resistance, a convincing break up through resistance, and then I'll reassess the charts next week. But just to clarify exactly what I'm expecting that now on the Russell here, as we approach these old highs again up around 840, that we will not break this high, that in fact this will hold as very strong resistance, we'll make a lower high somewhere before that level and continue down and at least test the same low again, but perhaps go a little bit lower as the indices come back into line and have a decent sell-off before pushing on again for the rest of 2011. Happy trading all. I hope that helps. Have a wonderful week.